So if you feel exhausted trying to be everything for everyone, this might be why. You're successful, you're capable, but deep down something feels off. And it's not burnout. Everyone's talking about burnout. We're talking about misalignment. So today we're talking about authenticity and integrity, not as these buzzwords that are flying around the internet, but as the foundation for real peace, confidence, and success. Dr. Joe is back. He's a rapid growth specialist and creator of the subconscious mindset training method. And today we're going to unpack why so many high performing people feel disconnected from themselves and how to change that. So, Dr. Joe, it's so good to see you. We've been giggling on here for, I don't know, 20 minutes before we started this recording. Um, but it's so good to see you. How have you been?
I've been really, it's always good to see you, Lisa. Love the new
Yes.
hairstyle, I guess. Yeah, yes. Yeah, and it's always fun. It's always fun and informative getting to speak with you, and talk with you. And I think it is a great topic. I'm really excited to get into the nuts and bolts of it and stuff and really give some people, give people understanding and some walkaways, tools they can walk away with to apply to bring about change.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the very first thing that is coming to mind is how, I often see these really successful people who have everything that you could ever imagine when it comes to success on paper. But then I see them and they're so drained and irritable and disconnected. Why do you think this happens?
I think part of it, all of it goes to our conditioning, but part of it is because we kill ourselves to get to that point, right? We're conditioned. In other words, we're taught that if we want to have a massively successful business, then we got to be willing to trade off our life. We got to be willing to work our tails off. We got to be willing to, sacrifice and discipline and more discipline and more discipline. And I mean, what if you achieve that, which very small percentage of people actually ever achieve the level of success that they truly desire, a bigger majority of people settle for scraps of what they truly want just because they don't have them to work that hard. So somebody that gets to that point, they're miserable, they're exhausted, they just don't have that joy because they've exhausted it so frequently trying to build that to that point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Lisa?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that this is where the inauthenticity comes from also, because I feel like some of these people, like you said, success has been ingrained to us as in success that we have a lot of money,
Mhm.
that we're popular, that we work really hard to get what we have to work really hard to get to the top. And when we're not living authentically, I feel like that can create a lot of exhaustion. So when I'm doing something that doesn't feel aligned with who I am,
Yes.
I feel drained.
Yes. Yes. And I have a client of mine. We met. He was doing a couple $1,000s a month in his business, and he worked full time. And so he wanted to get to the millions in his business. And so we're talking about, well, as he started to grow and getting into like hundreds of thousands of dollars, he said, I don't want to go any further. And so I didn't understand it because there was a complete flip flop of what he said he wanted. And so I said, why is that? He goes, oh man, I talked to my buddy. He's got a $50 million business. And he said there's no way he'd ever do it again. That he has no joy left to even be excited about life anymore. He doesn't want to travel because he's so tired. And it just about killed him
Yeah.
building that business. And that's what so many people follow when they do this one size fit all, or, if you want something, find somebody who has it and do what they did. And like all those philosophies there that just don't produce results versus getting into alignment with what you want. It's exactly what you said. It's that alignment. And ultimately, Lisa, ultimately, the reason we're here, any individual is here, is to bring about that authentic self that they were made to
Mhm.
be and live through that because that's where the unique gifts and talents, that's where the impact and the purpose and the mission of our life carries out and stuff. So, but what happens is we get with money, or we got to be successful, or what other people think of us, or I'm not working hard enough and things. And that's why even people who have built a business, I've noticed, I met somebody who had been through their business. I know how quickly their business launched and everything. But when they tell people about it, they tell them about how grueling it was and how hard it was and how many years. And I know for a fact it wasn't true.
Yeah.
But because we feel like we're an outcast unless we kill ourselves building that business. So it's all
Yeah.
conditioning, and it's all based on the further away we are from our authentic self, the harder it's going to be to achieve what we desire to achieve. So if we just
Agreed.
put focus on aligning, identifying, aligning with that authentic self, healing what's got to be healed, shifting what's got to be shifted, all of a sudden, like everything, that client I was telling you about that, with when he was at hundreds of thousands, he went within a year and a half from a couple $1,000s a month. He's now doing $60,000 to $65,000 a week in revenue.
Wow.
And I talked to him yesterday, and he's in Florida this week playing golf to practice his golf swing to get it better. He goes, trips with his family for 3-4 weeks at a time because his wife's from another country. And that's the life that's possible for us. But we got to
Yeah.
get the heck out of our own way for that to ever see, shine light on it.
Man, I'm so jealous. We're expecting a huge storm where I live today, like gigantic snowstorm. So that golfing in Florida sounds real nice right about now.
Now, I'll tell you, a guy that lives in the South and is from Michigan, I would love to be where you are and experience that snowstorm. But
That's
I didn't
true.
have to live with as many as you did.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, bring up the skis. So I guess this is my next question for you then. Um, how can we tell the difference between normal stress and being out of alignment? I feel like that's a challenging one. Like, how do
It
we
is.
know what stress is versus we're not on the right path? And I guess that also can be like reworded as like, how do we
Yeah.
know what authenticity is and how do we know when something is right?
Multiple ways of doing that. First is it'll come with the feeling, right? When you're on mark and you do something, it's the right thing to do. One of the indicators is when I'm like that, I don't give a damn about the results at that point. I'm just so into this is it, and I'm excited to do it, and I'm into it, and things like that. Even if it's hard, even if it takes a little while, like there's that knowing. And like I said, if I'm going in to do something and I'm going, well, that could probably bring me some revenue, that's typically not one of those things. So the first indicator, if I'm attached to what it is and not the results of what it can bring, that would be an indicator. That would be a clear indicator for me that I'm on that track. You agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's feeling in flow. What we talked
Yeah,
about
that's
before is
exact.
just feeling in
Yes.
flow, like we're not forcing something. Because when I'm forcing myself to do something that I absolutely hate to do, accounting, for example, I just feel so drained and so tired, and it just sucks the life out of me. But when I'm doing something that I love and that feels genuinely in tune with who I am, it just feels
Yes.
easy, even if it's hard, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's funny when I was in corporate as a VP of sales and helping them in bankruptcy get back profitability. And if I had to be in the office 2 days in a row after 5 o'clock, I was ticked. I was cheated. I was robbed. I was taken advantage of. I was da 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 da. And there's times when I'm doing what I'm doing now that I do on my podcast episode, the coaching session, whatever it is I'm doing during the day, I'll do. And then at like 8 o'clock at night, I'll come in and shoot videos. And Lisa, there's times I get done at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. I'm so excited. And that's part of the whole thing that was really important to build into the SMT method is that is developing systems of accelerating habits, but doing so in a way that's unique to the individual I'm working with.
Yeah,
So it's not
I
one of
love
those
that.
everybody does this and gets that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say because so many people, like it's just sad that so many people are just adapting to fit in. And then they wake up like 5 years from that moment and they're like, I don't even know who I am. And they're so lost. So having a system that really gets people to understand themselves, I feel like is the most valuable thing, especially now in this world of
Yes.
AI and like everyone's losing their jobs and everyone is getting forced to look within. Having some guidance in that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it's I'll meet people in business and things like that, and I'll say, hey, do you think you could grow your business at this rate and enjoy the process of doing so, enjoy the journey to the growth, and people will like get really mad at me even for saying that. But I know hundreds, a couple hundred people who have done that over the past decade and have had fun growing that business. I'm working with clients right now who have fun growing that business. They grow, they find more freedom of time, they have more time with their family. I've even seen like marriages as I'm working with somebody, marriages take on a higher level with the communion between the two and things like it's amazing what happens. But we live in a world and we're conditioned from a young age to not know the answer to things. So even though we're always you have to have the answer, you got to know this and that, but we're conditioned in a way where we don't know anything. So we have to go to somebody to get that. And
Mm.
and there's a lot of people who will take our money and tell us what it is we need to do to get there. And less than 1% of the people following those pathways ever get there. And what I
Wow,
love about what I
that's
get to do,
sad.
because I've experienced that other side, is I don't know anybody's pathway. But what I do know and seem to have gifts and talents into and a huge heart into helping people is identify what that is, get to living that and enjoying life.
Yeah. So the authenticity part is that about like what role does subconscious programming play in shaping who we think we're supposed to be?
But that is the conditioning. Anytime we say, who am I supposed to be? That's we're talking directly to the conditioning,
Ah,
right?
okay.
Who
So
am I supposed
anytime
to
we
be?
ask and
I'm
we
not smart.
question,
I'm not smart enough to know who I'm supposed to be. So I got to go somewhere to find out who I'm supposed to be. And then we get all these answers and we try and we spin our wheels and we spend so much time and which is our rarest commodity and all this in our life and stuff and spend so many years looking for that. We can never go outside to find that answer.
hmm, I mean, earlier on in my 20s, I thought I wanted to be in the legal world. And
Mhm.
I attached to wanting to be this corporate, powerhouse businesswoman, which I am, but not in that environment. Like, so I attached my full identity to being successful in law. And it felt so disconnected with who I was. But because I put so
Mhm.
much emphasis on that is what success looks like, because growing up,
Yes.
I mean, I was told that doctors and lawyers and, people who are really successful have jobs like that. And so
Mhm.
I had no friggin' clue what to do. I just knew I liked psychology and I went into law and I thought that that would be fun and it was awful, but I pushed myself for 10 years to
Yes.
be that girl because I put so much emphasis on it due to the programming that I was fed. It was
Yeah.
challenging. I was so irritable. Like I literally almost punched someone in the face for coughing one day. Like I just became on edge. It was the worst.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the occasional throat punch.
Really, I would go to work super early, and this guy, he had like a throat problem. I swear, there was something with his throat. He continuously coughed and cleared his throat, and I remember like slamming my coffee mug down, and I almost got up, and I was so irritable. And then I was like, whoa, I got to check myself. Where is this actually coming from? And it was coming from the fact that I was living a life that wasn't who I was. I was
Yeah.
being someone, pretending I was someone I was not. And it was driving me insane. It had nothing to do with his throat. I mean, he was a little bit annoying, but the bottom line was it was
Right.
because I was
Right.
living a way that I'm not supposed to be living.
Yeah. And that's another indicator of things like that. Things will show up to create upset or anger or frustration. And if we try to go deeper with it, it's never about that. It's never about the cough. It's never about there's always something deeper within us trying to guide us. I spent 28 years in corporate America, growing up being told that, I wasn't smart and I was going to, work, like things like that and stuff, and to getting to a VP of sales, helping companies in bankruptcy back to profitability. I shouldn't have got to do any of those things. Um, But in that corporate life, exactly like you're talking about, I just felt so dead that I would abuse alcohol and I would use gambling and I would, do all these things to try to stay in that because everybody said, "Oh my God, man, you made it. You made it. This is, you hit it." But it just killed me.
Oh my God, I'm going to say something that I have never said out loud on camera before. I used to do lines of cocaine in those law firm bathrooms. I would get up, I would have it in my purse, and before a really important meeting, I would go snort a line of cocaine to make it through. Like, that's insane. And that was normal for me for like 5 years of my
Right.
life, is like
Well, we got
doing
to find a
lines
way
of
to
cocaine
cope with the
in law
life
firm
work, the
bathrooms.
miserable
That's
life work.
insane.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And that broke me down. So, I mean, that's the that's the caution. That's the red flag with like this inauthentic living where people are just living to fit in or living a life that they think is successful. That's
yeah.
what starts to happen is we start to lose ourselves and then we start to want to escape and then it gets really bad. So, I mean,
And then,
yeah.
oh, there's quite a few people I meet in their 70s, late 60s, 70s, maybe some even in their 80s. And I said, well, once you identified that, why didn't you go back? And they said, I no longer had the drive to be able to do it. And I can understand that, but that's so sad when those things are happening for you in your situation, for me in the alcohol gambling, for whatever it is. If we're using things to live a life because we can't stand living the life without them, there's other avenues of things we can do to find that out, seek that out. And it's going to be scary. And it's only scary because you haven't done so before. But there's people that are willing to help you and minimize the fear and maximize the excitement of where you're going into and stuff and give you that opportunity. And that's really what it is it's fear controls us or we control our fear.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to have someone to coach you along. Like um, when you're feeling out of sorts, you can't think clearly. So I'm sure a
Mhm.
lot of the people that you work with, they they're powerful and all of us are powerful, but we need community. We need mentors to
Yeah,
help guide us and show us what we cannot see. Sometimes it takes a 1 hour conversation with a stranger to awaken something in us that we haven't seen before. It's like the healer in Sedona that we talked about before we hit record, right? It's like those little things, they light flames in us, and then once that
yes.
spark is started, then we can work on it. But I think that's the importance of working with someone like you who has a program and who has a system to help people get to authentically being successful in what they're doing.
Absolutely. And I still have that in my own life. I still work with mentors. I still look into the next level of things and I still continue that growth happening and stuff because I know what happens is if I stop that, I had a good friend explain this to me early in life. And I didn't pay attention to it for a long time, but if when we look at that, we're like a train going uphill, and we open a business, and we want a family, and we want this stuff, and we're like a train going up. And as long as we continue, as long as I continue working on me and elevating that and opening that up, I'll just keep, even if it's an inch at a time, I'll move along and continue moving forward. The moment I stop, picture a train going uphill, I have to go backwards before I can go forwards again.
Right.
And so if I keep moving in that forward plane, and one of the things I really love is it worked for me, and it seems to work really well for my clients, is once even building the business to that level and getting there and stuff, there's such a joy and an excitement for life that it attracts so many other people to it. So when I work with a client, it's almost like I'm expanding my family by that person and their family and their wife and their kids, and things like that. It expands like that, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful blessing I get to live in what I do.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about integrity. So, what does integrity mean?
Are you asking me what it means to me? I
What
mean,
does
there's a
integrity
basic
mean?
integrity means I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
Integrity means that I stand behind what I stand for in action,
Mhm.
in principles, and like that. That's what it means to me.
Do you think it's about like alignment between thoughts, words, and actions?
Words and actions. Yes. Yes, I
Yeah.
would say so. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, why do you think people say yes when they really mean no?
It would go back to conditioning.
Hmm.
And I'm saying this based on the experience of being like that. I never wanted to say no to people early on in life. It would like really bother me if I had to say no to somebody. I would feel so guilty, and I'd feel so bad about myself, and that like I'm selfish. And even if it was something I couldn't do, and so I became a people pleaser, and I just did everything for everybody as much as I possibly could, and lost myself completely in doing so.
Yeah. So many people do. I was the same way, even if it was like the littlest thing. I don't know why saying no made me feel so guilty.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing. So I think integrity is more important than we think, because I know for myself that if I say something and I don't do what I say, even if no one is watching, I feel
Mhm.
heavy.
Yeah.
So I think part of being authentic is holding ourselves accountable for the things that we say. And so being more intentional with
Yes.
what we're saying and how we're living and what we're doing, so that all of those things can be in alignment. Because when no one else is looking, I mean, I can use the smoking example. I used to smoke a vape and no one knew about it. And I am also a health advocate. So I felt like my integrity was being questioned
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I was telling people how to be healthy, yet I was smoking. And
Yes.
that felt heavy, and it started to erode my confidence.
And that's exactly what happens with it. If you think about it, when we're living, bringing more of our authentic self outwardly, and then we do things that are not our authentic self, of course it's going to shift that, right? I mean, we can't feel good about doing something that's completely out of line with who we are. It's
Yeah.
just impossible to do that. You think about it in regards to like sin and stuff like that. A good friend told me one time, he said, we're not punished for our sins, we're punished by them. So not that those are sins like what we know sin to be and stuff like that, but when I'm doing something against my authentic self, of course it's going to have weight to it. It's going to have not good feeling to it. It's going to have, and those are such, they feel like punishment, but they're such great teachers, because it's like that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, growing up by Canada, across the river from it, and playing hockey and things like that. When I was earlier, I would dip tobacco, because smoking it just killed my lungs. I couldn't skate, so it was, and it just became not who I was. I've helped a lot of my clients, Lisa, stop smoking.
Mm,
And
beautiful.
the first thing I'll do when I'm talking to them about that is I'll say, stop associating yourself with what you do. You're not a smoker, you smoke.
Mm,
And once we start disconnecting that, what we're ultimately doing is aligning with our true self.
right.
I'm not somebody who dips tobacco. I don't need to do that anymore. My authentic self isn't like that. If I were to try and do that, it would probably cause me upset. I would feel
Hmm.
off balance. I would feel life getting exactly what you said. Perfect definition. Life getting hard.
Hmm. Yeah. Life gets hard when we're not in alignment.
And here's some of the things with the conditioning, the programming right here, because we get used to aligning to what other people think how we should be.
Yeah.
And when we start tapping into who I authentically believe myself to be, it creates a rapid shift within inside of us, and it opens the door to a kind of freedom there's no other way to experience.
I know when I'm living for other people and not for myself that I get this anger inside of me. And it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, what's the word? It's like I feel like I put it on those people, like they're making me feel a certain way, but it's within myself. Um, but there's been times where being fully authentic didn't feel safe. You know what I mean? So why do
Oh,
you
I
think,
do. I
yeah, why do you
do.
think the subconscious sometimes sees the authenticity as unsafe?
Because it's new and we haven't practiced living in it. The more we practice living in it, the more comfortable we come. And then all of a sudden, I remember listening to a speaker, God, 17, 18 years ago, and they said, I knew I was starting to grow when I went from being suicidal to homicidal. And you think
Okay.
about that. In other words, instead of me punishing me, I'm going to practice being okay telling you I can't, or saying
Okay.
no to outside things like that, and stuff like that. And so when we first start practicing it, I experienced all of the bad feelings with doing that. Like I was letting somebody down and I was disappointed. And to me, it didn't come across like I was disappointing them. It came across to me as I was a disappointment.
Hmm.
Right. And that's how a lot of people hear that. So as we start practicing these things, as we start setting boundaries, really, because it all fits into that category, right? As I start being authentic with myself and going, you know what? If I do that, I can't do this, and I really want to do this. So, and then make that decision and tell them no. But when I do it the other way around there, it's going to cause upset within inside of me. It has to. I'm going against my authentic self.
Yeah.
And so when we start living through there, there's going to be some uncomfortableness with that too. And setting boundaries. That's why we start with the basics. Even business owners I work with, we learn to set boundaries. We learn to get into alignment. Ultimately, the best I can ever do for a client, Lisa, is help them tap into that inner knowing from their authentic self and bring that outward into their business, into their finances, into their relationships, their health and well-being, time and money, freedom, all of it across the board.
So is that why people feel anxiety around visibility or speaking up? Because it's just not what they're used to.
It's new.
Yeah.
And we know, that within that programming is the comfort zone, right? And so anytime we step outside of that comfort zone, it's going to be scary. It's new. We're not familiar with it. The first time I ran off of a 2,000-foot mountaintop with me in a hang glider, it was scary. Like three steps, the third step, I could feel my heart beating in my throat. And the only thing that was going in my mind is, no, no, don't. And then my feet left the ground, and it instantly became the most amazing feeling I'd ever had in my life. I mean, it
That's
was truly
incredible. That's
essence.
like the breakdown before breakthrough theory. Like
And
that
that's what
is
happens.
what it makes me think of. That illustrates that so beautifully is most often the chaos, the storm happens, and then the beauty comes through.
And that's it. The fear will be the greatest just before that jumping off point into the new.
Yeah, it's like just before getting on stage, just before an important meeting, just before doing a podcast. And then once you start, it just becomes easier and easier.
It does. It does. And so what happens? Our the human condition is once they become easier and easier, chooses the next big mountaintop,
Hmm.
right? Because ideally we want those challenges, we want that growth, we want that experience, we want to continue to elevate and grow and expand and things like that. It's only when we get into that conditioning, and some of it can even be like that. Oh, who do you think you are? When I went from cleaning at 18, 19 years old, cleaning oils out of machining equipment and stuff, and just continued like to white collar in the ground floor of sales and stuff. That was impossible. The fact that you and I are talking right now, that's impossible for how I started going about. But it's also testament. I love who I am today. I love what I stand for here today. I love how I get to help people in doing what feels so fulfilling to me.
Hmm.
But I had to go through fear in order to achieve that.
Hmm.
And we can go through it fighting it, or we can go through it and somebody who's been down that road before, who believes in a vision bigger than we believe in ourselves to help guide that pathway through there. It's our
Yeah,
choice.
I think there's this illusion that successful people have it real easy and that it just happened because they are who they are. We often forget all the stuff we don't see on social media. And we often forget about the real life struggles, oh, I barely made it today because I don't feel good. Having to drive the kids to whatever sporting event they have, the sacrifices, the late nights, the anxiety, the fear, like all of that stuff is real and that's all a part of success and being authentic. Like that's the thing I want the audience to realize is that authenticity doesn't mean that it's easy. It just means that it's right. And the more that we practice being authentic, the easier it gets and the less jarring it will be for the nervous system.
So you just answered what I was going to say, because it doesn't have to be endless effort, exhaustiveness, missing out life. It doesn't have to be that. If we believe it doesn't have to be that. And
Hmm.
as we start aligning, as we start getting in alignment with that authentic self, there's avenues of doing things that are so much easier than we could ever imagine when we're out of alignment. That as we get into that place, and that's the SMT method is based on this strategy is we get a dynamic vision which defines what we want, what it looks like living that life, everything else, and then we get the conscious mind, which is our knowing and of what we want, all of that stuff, and then we get the subconscious, and then we develop systems of accelerating habits unique to the individual that align all that. So in every single day we wake up and spend our day, we're going about it from an aligned state into what we truly desire. So another way of saying that is that vision is what we choose to call the reality of our life.
Hmm.
And so
So if you could say more, like for someone listening who realizes that they've literally been living a performance instead of living authentically, how can you specifically help them?
more. You asked me if I could say more. I just wanted you to know I can say more.
Mhm.
Sorry,
That took
Lisa.
me a sec. I was like, What's happening?"
All of a sudden you hang up.
Yeah, I'm like, the podcast is
Yeah.
over, guys. I gotta go.
I'm sorry. I thought that was,
Sorry, I
it
gotta
made me
scratch
chuckle.
my nose.
Touche. Touche. Um, it all starts with stepping aside and getting clarity on what you really desire.
Hmm.
That's a starting point. That's why every client I work with can come out of the gate developing that dynamic vision, because it's all based not what you deserve, not what other people say you deserve, not, but what do you truly want? And we build that powerful with clarity, feeling tone, things like that. And that's our starting point. When we start building it up, and my clients will go, they'll go from, well, there's no freaking way that's possible. And then a few days later go, I don't know why that wouldn't be possible. I've never thought that big before, but nothing's telling me it would be impossible. And then we start with that alignment. And then as we start moving forward, we start, tapping into that conditioning in the subconscious that the program's set up to do. And we start shifting that. So it's opening up the doorway. And all of a sudden we start seeing different opportunities. We start seeing different potentials. We start seeing easier ways of doing things. And as we take those things, it becomes, and that's what I said when it becomes a joyful thing stepping into this, not a trudgery, killing yourself type of a mode. And in doing so, that's how clients achieve rapid results in less time and have more freedom going into it.
So tell us how it works. When you start working with someone, how often are you meeting with them? How long does this process of stepping into our authentic self really take?
Well, we start seeing results right away. The way I've developed the SMT method is it's a 1 year program, 1 year platform that we go through. One of the things I'll say right now is, most programs of things like this are one size fit all, right? So if you come into it from this way, you have to adjust your authentic self to match that program, right? And if somebody else comes this way, they have to adjust it. And I've done those and they didn't work for me. I learned stuff, but it just didn't bring results. And so it was really important to me that this SMT method, it has a locked model, but it's fluid to meet the individual, the uniqueness of every individual. So we're coming into it doing so. The very first thing most business owners I have to do is get them to throttle back a little bit. So in doing so, we utilize developing the dynamic vision, which also causes the bump into some of that programming cause and limitation. Once we have the vision in place, we start living through that vision, we start opening up the door, we start seeing opportunities, and then we start developing systems. So we're bridging the gap really. And we start
Right.
developing systems of accelerating habits that are unique to that individual. So now we're finding out what lights you up. Like you doing what you're doing here, or when you're involved in the energy work, which you always are involved, but when it lights you up. So then we
Yeah.
find what avenues, what ways of doing that light you up, and then we find more time to do that. And as we're doing so, it's not a trudgery or stealing time from something else. It's more of an excitement as we're going into it. And as we align those things and living that way, it continues to bring out easier opportunities that happen more rapidly and they just start showing up. And we're getting exactly what you said earlier into the flow. We have
Hmm.
alignment between the vision, the conscious, the subconscious, and then the things we're doing, the systems that we're following, the actions we're taking. Now we have complete alignment. So it becomes easy, it becomes fun and enjoyable, and can bring rapid results, returns to it.
Hmm. Is it
I
normal
work
for
with, go on.
no, I was just going to ask you if it's normal for people's lives to change, like for things that are not meant for them to start falling away because they're being replaced by things that are real and authentic and related to that person. Is it normal for their life to change dramatically?
Yeah, dramatically is based on self-diagnosis, right? But yes, it is. I mean, some of the things I tell people, some of the things in your life right now can't go with you into your vision.
Right.
I have clients that'll tell me, Lisa, I want to get to $25 million a year.
Right.
And we'll start building and they'll get to 3, 4, $5 million a year. And they're going, I don't want to grow it anymore. I love this. I love this point. I have more than I need and I can share and give away. And this is where I want to be.
Hmm.
And then start picking up another phase of life, as far as like a lover, whatever it may be and stuff. And so yeah, it definitely, and even our vision, what I tell people is our vision is as alive as we are. So as we grow, expand, change, become more authentic, start bringing things about, the vision changes too.
Right.
So as long as we're breathing, our vision has life to it.
So where can people go to learn more about the work that you do?
Anybody can go to my website. There's so much on there. It explains the programs and everything else. One of the things you would ask me, I wanted to answer really quick, is you asked how I work with people. I only
I
work with a
did.
select number of people at a time. We schedule a once a week call that we get on. But the reason I only work with so many people at a time is so I'm available to my clients. So if our appointment is on Monday and it's Thursday and something happens, they don't have to wait until the next Monday in order to reach out. Good job finishing that. It's wait, do that again.
Why?
I was trying to figure out. Anyway, so they don't have to wait until the next Monday to they can reach out on that Thursday. And so I'm there to help them throughout the entire path, not just a once a week conversation, keep you going type of thing. The program, there's a module for each week or every other week of the program, depending on what phase we're in, that walks you through, and it's all based on audio. I'm sorry, audio, and then there's written stuff, and then it's even got some areas where it kind of asks for inputs from you and stuff, and so we learn from hearing, reading, and doing in
Mhm.
each along the whole process.
So tell us, before we go, what are some of the transformations that you've seen with your clients?
The biggest one, and I claim this, the biggest one is a company that its highest year in 13 years was $7.5 million. And within 12 months, toppled over $22 million.
Wow.
It was the first year in the person's life that they took 5 weeks of vacation during that year of growth. And they have maintained it now for little over 7 years. I've
That's
had people
incredible.
go from $300,000 to over $2 million in a year. A bakery, quadruple the size within 6 months. The one gentleman I talked about that went from a couple $1,000 working full time to doing over $60,000 a week in revenue now. I mean, it just goes on and on
Yeah,
with the
that's
results.
amazing. I mean, it's powerful when you're living with integrity and you're living authentically, you're doing what you love, and you have a great mentor and coach. I feel like that's the secret sauce. That's like the magic muffin mix. I don't know. It just, all of that bleeds. Life is good in my mind. Like, that's the message I'm getting, is just like, life doesn't have to be super hard. Life is supposed to be fun. And when you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning and it feels good and you're excited
Yes.
about it,
Yes.
that's the most
Yes.
important thing.
Isn't that the best feeling ever?
Yeah,
To
God, I
wake up
remember
in
a
the morning
time
and,
when
and
I
so
hated
many
it.
and so many people don't get to experience that.
Hmm.
And it's not their fault. But like with what you're doing here and bringing this out to an audience, if somebody hears this and they just don't do anything within 72 hours, it's like they didn't even listen to this.
Hmm.
We just go back into your way. So it's really important for anybody that this resonates with. If this hits you at all, within the next 72 hours, do something. Because
Hmm.
if not, you're just continuing living that. And it's even life is even worse like that. And I know this from my drinking days, because life is even worse like that because we know it, but we're not doing anything about it. We know there's something else possible, but we're not even taking the time to look into seeing what it could be.
Yeah, that bleeds into the integrity piece, is like knowing there's more, but we're not doing anything about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
And Lisa, anybody can reach out to me at coachwithjoey.com and schedule a 10-minute introduction conversation, not a sales or anything. It's just if somebody shows up there, they said they heard this and I want to help them find out what's stuck right now. Where's it coming from? And if we can shift that in 10 minutes, I love doing that. I love serving that way.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today and having another amazing conversation with me. It was so much fun.
I Yeah, I appreciate you too so much.
Yes, me too. And we love the audience, you guys out there. Thank you for tuning in and for listening. We will make sure to have Dr. Joe's links in the show notes for you to have easy access to everything that he offers. Now, take a second and pause and take a deep breath. Where in your life can you start living more authentically? Stay tuned for the next episode. Until next time.
Thanks, Lisa.